Very welcome back, everyone, to the Justice4AaronBrady campaign as we continue to highlight the corruption, the collusion, the coercion and the perjury committed by those involved in the investigation and the trial of Aaron. Now, there has been a massive response to what people cannot believe what they're watching with the testimony of Molly Staunton, as the video of her testimony from her kitchen in New York to the court in Dublin, that some of the video clips were released on social media, and people cannot believe what they're watching. A girl, a vulnerable young woman, being attacked physically in her kitchen in New York and no actions taken by the Irish authorities. And then it's quite obvious, and people are astonished at how Brendan Grehan, Senior Counsel for the prosecution, bullied and coerced that young girl. But we will be dealing with that in more detail. So, like everything else in Aaron's Justice4AaronBrady campaign, none of these events stand alone. None of these incidents are isolated. Everything is connected and creates a whole picture, which the Irish authorities has done everything to hide from you, the Irish public. So we're going to highlight another issue that we have released is the American agent, his tape in Belfast Airport. And we're going to show this man here for what he is. This is Senior Investigating Officer Pat Marry, who we say is a scumbag liar. And we're going to show now that what this man has done to the memory of his so-called colleague and friend is below disgusting, absolutely despicable. Words, I'm lost for words to describe this subhuman person here and how self-serving he is. So while we're going to listen to this tape, so this is what we have. We have this man here. He's an American agent. His name is Matt Katsky. He works for Homeland Security, or he worked for Homeland Security. He was seconded to working from the US Embassy in London. Now, this Katsky appeared at Belfast City Airport, where James Flynn was travelling through the airport, and Katsky approached James Flynn. And he offered James Flynn inducements to give false statements against Aaron Brady. Now, the vitally important part of this is at this time, and you will see from when we analyse Pat Marry's lies in court, that James Flynn at this time was a suspect in the murder of Detective Garda Adrian Donoghue at Lordship Credit Union. So very briefly, we have an American agent seconded to the US Embassy in London, approaching a suspect in a murder case that happened in the Republic of Ireland, and he's approaching him in Belfast City Airport. And very, very luckily, and James Flynn and his partner who he was with that day were wise enough to record Matt Katsky's approach to them, totally illegal approach to them in Belfast Airport. Imagine if I was sitting here today telling you that an American agent who was attached to the London Embassy approached a suspect in Belfast Airport and offered them inducements. You would just laugh in my face. But the proof is in the pudding. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to listen to some clips from the conversation between Matt Katsky and James Flynn in Belfast Airport. So let's have a little listen to this here now.
I do have a lot of authority to help out when it comes to citizenship in the United States. My goal is Aaron Brady. I want to be clear on that. I do think that maybe one of the easiest ways to help and start this is finding other people. Well, if you know people, maybe in one region, whatever, that know Aaron, and Aaron has spoke about this, they want to come to the United States and have a way, but they're willing to testify. I'm here to talk about that. I want to know people that know Aaron Brady isn't really doing it, and then I can offer things once I have it. Until I have that, I can't offer anything. I'd like to speak to you next week if possible.
Well, you know how long I'm here for. I'm here for 10 days.
But if you guys don't give me a reason to come forward and stand up for your team, I think you understand the offer.
Yeah.
This opportunity's here right now. And I'm telling you, call Eugene and give him this offer.
Yeah, well,
Have him call me. Have him call me. I do have a lot of authority to help out. When it comes to citizenship in the United States, when it comes to status, legal status in the United States, when it comes to being deported from the United States, I have a lot of authority to help out. Gold is Aaron Brady. I want to be clear on that. Aaron Brady goes away. You probably never see me. Gold is Aaron Brady. I want to be clear on that.
So there we have it. You may have to listen to that again to grasp the severity of it and the significance of it. So in order to go through the most prudent parts of that statement or that recording, we're going to we'll use Pat Marry's testimony. Now, Pat Marry is under oath when he's been questioned about this tape. And to all intents and purposes, he tells an absolute tissue of lies here. None more so than he tells the court that he had no idea that this was going to happen, that this American agent, whom you can see here, and Marry told us he loved this man. He thought he was a wonderful agent. And yet he wants us to believe when the tape surfaced, Marry wants us to believe he didn't know Katsky was undergoing this totally illegal operation in Belfast Airport. So I'm going to run through the testimony. It comes from Friday the 3rd of July 2020. So this is Mr. OH is Michael O'Higgins. That's Aaron's defence barrister. And he is speaking to Pat Marry here in court on the 3rd of July 2020. So Mr. O'Higgins says, you may call, I am sure you do, Judge. Last December, there was a tape played of a meeting between Agent Katsky and Mr. Jimmy Flynn, recorded at Belfast International Airport, and we introduced the tape into the case. But in fact, it was also coming via another route, as Mr. Flynn had sent it to Agent Katsky. So that's just a little bit of background on it there. So the tape was actually introduced, and you'll notice there Michael O'Higgins asked the judge if he had he remembered it. So on 2 occasions, Judge Michael White refused to allow this tape into evidence so the jury could hear exactly what the authorities were doing in the investigation into the murder of their colleague, Detective Guard Adrian Donoghue. So that sets the tone. Judge Michael White knew about the tape, and he refused to let it in as evidence. So now we're going to move on to Michael O'Higgins speaking to Marry. So how did you find Homeland Security in your dealings with them? Marry says, I found them to be very professional, very focused, and cooperated with An Garda Síochána to facilitate what we wanted to achieve. And when I asked you about this the last time, whether you had any input into Agent Katsky's travelling to Belfast to meet Mr. Flynn and have the discussion alongside the lines recorded, whether you had any input into that, you said you hadn't. And Pat Marry, you are a dirty liar. You said I had not No. You are under oath there, Mary. It's absolutely disgusting. You are a liar. Mr. O'Higgins, apparently this was something he had done entirely on his own initiative. And Mary says, yes, and I spoke with him about it afterwards, and he shouldn't, speak with persons of interest or suspects, and he should be run things through myself. So Mary's covering for himself here. And again, for clarity, we know now that James Flynn, he tells us there, is a suspect. That he's saying Katsky shouldn't have spoken to a suspect or a person of interest. So that clarifies that point. And did he acknowledge that? He did. And was that a telephone call? And Mary says it would have been a telephone call, yes. And is there a record of it? There is nothing written down, no. You are a liar, Pat Mary. And it is possible, in fairness, that you have nothing written down because you are covering this up. But any interaction between different police forces in an incident so serious, he's breaching, Matt Katsky is breaching all sorts of rules, regulations, moral and ethical grounds for police work here. And you have nothing written down, Mary. You're a total disgrace and you are a liar. You are perjuring yourself continuously. Mr. O'Higgins asks, and again, just to refresh, you never alerted the incident room to this event. No, and you never discussed it with anyone. No, because the content of this tape wasn't relevant and I decided that it wasn't to be brought. So again, this is total unprofessionalism. It is a dereliction of duty. It is a blatant attempt to hide what Mary knew was a complete and total failed operation. Mary had sent Katsky to do the dirty work. They got caught with their trousers down, and now Mary had to cover up for himself. Under any circumstances, Mary should have brought attention to the incident room, Fort Apache Dundalk, Mary called it himself. The incident room in respect of his colleague's mother, that this happened in Belfast Airport. There are no reasons, there are no exemptions that in any way, shape or form that Mary should have not reported this to the incident room. There's no reasons, absolutely no exemptions. This should have been front and centre if you are conducting your investigation properly. But he wasn't doing it properly. He had made a mess of it in 2013, and this is in 2017, and he's trying to save his own career at the expense of the memory of his colleague and alleged friend, Detective Guard Adrian Donoghue. Now, so at that point, Katsky's tape was played in court again, and then Michael O'Higgins continued to question Mary about what we were after hearing in the courtroom. Mr. O'Higgins, there's been he had not rung you after this to tell you about this. No, Mary said. You're a liar, Pat Mary. You perjured yourself. He never rang you and said Jimmy Flynn was looking for immunity. No, you are a liar, Pat Mary. He never ever said that to you. No, you are a liar, Pat Mary. You continue to perjure yourself. Never. No, you are a liar, Pat Mary. You are perjuring yourself. That's something that would stick out. It would, yes. See, he has nowhere to go. He's a cornered, dirty rat. And at the end of those very simple questions, he had to admit it would stick out. Now, Katsky does mention there, he never rang you and said Jimmy Flynn is looking for immunity. During the course of the tape, Jimmy Flynn says that he will speak to An Garda Síochána. Jimmy never looked for immunity, and when you listen to the tape, you can see quite clearly that Katsky is offering all sorts of inducements in relation to Eugene Flynn Jr., who is Jimmy's brother. So it's a dirty, murky mess. And I believe James Flynn acted very well, considering that he was hijacked and ambushed in an airport, travelling with his then girlfriend. So this is where we're going to look at what is in the tape. So we've seen Pat Marry telling us, didn't know anything about it. Katsky done this all on his own. Indeed, it was described in the courtroom that Katsky went rogue. So this American agent done all this off his own bat. But when you scrutinise and look at the evidence, and this is why Judge White and Brendan Grehan fought tooth and nail not to allow this into the trial in front of the jury. And obviously they succeeded in that illegal operation, which was only one of scores that happened during the Court of Ireland's trial. So let's look at Katsky telling us, the Irish public, telling everyone that Pat Marry knew all about it. So Mr. O'Hagan says, anyway, it didn't happen. Just at the top of page 4, just maybe at the last line on 3, just to get in context of the observations. I know your offer is not going to be there all for the next 6 years or 2 months or 24 hours. Agent Katsky says, no, I want to speak to you before you leave. Now, I'll just go over that again. The first part that Michael O'Higgins is reading out there is James Flynn. I know your offer is not going to be there all for the next 6 years or 2 months or 24 hours. Agent Katsky says, no, I want to speak to you before you leave. And Katsky is just explaining he wants to speak to Jimmy before Jimmy goes back to America. Of course, I do. And I'd like to speak to you next week, if possible. It is your testimony that Agent Katsky never rang you to say, I have met this fellow and I'm trying to set up something for next week. So Jimmy's playing along with Katsky's game in Belfast Airport. He says, I'm going to meet you next week. And Michael O'Higgins asked the dirty liar, Pat Marry, did Agent Katsky not get on the phone to you and say, Pat, I've just spoken to Jimmy Flynn, had a good chat with him, and he's willing to meet next week? And Pat Marry says, no, he did not. Pat Marry, you are a liar. You purged yourself in the courtroom again. We move on. And Mr. O'Higgins is again reading from the transcript of the tape. And if I could ask you then to go to page 7, which is the penultimate page, about 8 or 9 lines from the bottom. And Agent Katsky says to James Flynn, my goal is Aaron Brady. I want to be clear on that. Yeah. So Aaron Brady goes away, yet for you, you'll probably never see me again. Now, Mr. O'Hagan says, now, I am just reading that for context. It's what's coming after I want to ask you. Now, Mr. Flynn says, whenever you're having your conversation after here with the other guys, the other party down south. So Jimmy says, whenever you're having your conversation after here with the other guys, the other party down south, Mr. O'Higgins puts this to Pat Marry, that's the guards, isn't that right? Presumably. And Pat Marry had to answer. One could intimate from that, that's what he was referring to. Of course, that's what he was referring to, the guards. Katsky was in direct contact with Pat Marry. It wouldn't surprise me if Pat Marry was sitting in the car park in Belfast Airport. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And Marry is telling a tissue of lies. It's obvious. They're telling us here, and it gets worse for Marry. And Agent Katsky says, I am going to say he offered to talk to me regarding whatever questions you have. So Agent Katsky, it's so obvious. It's blatantly obvious. So Agent Katsky says, I am going to say he offered to talk to me regarding whatever questions you have. So whatever questions you have is Pat Marry. Whatever questions Marry has for James Flynn. So in the face of it, Agent Katsky is evincing an intention to contact the guards and relayed the conversation that he had with Jamie Flynn, but you say that never happened. No, I had this, he's bumbling here. No, you are a liar, a dirty liar, Pat Murray. And you purged yourself to stop this tape going into evidence. So Mr. O'Higgins says, fair enough. Then overleaf on page 8. Katsky says again, if you come to me, and there's a little bit inaudible there, PSNI don't want to get involved. So not only are the guards involved, the PSNI are involved. Because obviously you can't have an American agent floating around Northern Ireland interviewing suspects in a murder that happened in the Republic. It's infuriating just reading this. But I hope you, the Irish public, can understand how corrupt Pat Murray is. And how blatant a liar he is. And he had to go in and face the court, face the Irish people, tell these lies to stop this tape going in front of the jury, to prove all the other coercion and collusion with the likes of Cahill, Maguire, Morton, Ronan Flynn. So all the evidence is there, and as I said, none of these events stand alone in our campaign. We can link them all together like a jigsaw, and it fits perfectly. Agent Katsky, I appreciate you talking to us. I know you weren't prepared for this, Mr. Flynn, but either way, I'll call you. So obviously, he's even admitting that this wasn't arranged. You weren't prepared for this, Mr. Flynn. He ambushed James Flynn in Belfast Airport. So Katsky's admitting this. Agent Katsky says, I appreciate that. I hope you feel better. I hope you enjoy your time, and we'll be in touch. Now, this is where, again, we get proof positive that the guards were involved in this interaction. And Mr. Flynn says, as long as somebody else doesn't meet me down the road. Very clever of Jimmy here, James, to just test the water and see what is it that Katsky is up to here. Now, it's not immediately obvious what that answer means, but Agent Katsky says, no, I don't believe somebody is going to do that. Nobody has told me that that is going on. And he asked Pat Murray, do you see that, Mr. Murray, Detective Murray? And Murray says, yes, I see that. So we have Agent Katsky saying he's in contact with someone because nobody has told me that's going to happen. So Agent Katsky knows that if James Flynn in some way was prepared to tell lies against Aaron, and that in itself makes absolutely no sense, because during the course of the whole trial, and Brendan Grehan, Lorkenstein continually perpetuated the story that Aaron and James Flynn was joined at the hip. That was said scores of times during the trial. So to all intents and purposes, and it has been proven, James Flynn has been acquitted. His car is in the square in Crossmaglen at the time of the Northern robbery. When we dug deep and found the CCTV footage, James Flynn was exonerated. And he was acquitted of any involvement of the Northern robbery on the 25th of January. So that shows you how dirty and murky these bastards are at creating a false narrative. So Pat Murray says, yes, he accepts that he sees this. And then Jimmy Flynn says again, waiting for me, PSNI waiting for me when I get back to Ireland. And Agent Katsky says, here he is, he's telling us. I do not believe that's going to happen. They would be lying to me if that happens to you. So Katsky has it all set up, not only with Murray, but with the PSNI. It's a fully coordinated illegal operation involving 3 police forces. And that is why Murray had to come and tell these lies to stop this tape from going forward. That would be them telling me they are doing something and they are claiming they are not. We had discussions. I know, but I am telling you now that that's something, and it's inaudible. We had discussions. Kat, it's there in black and white. Judge White and Brendan Grehan perpetuated this. It's there for everyone to see. This is what Agent Matt Katsky said. That would be them telling me, them telling me is Pat Murray. Pat Murray is the leader of them. They are doing something that they are claiming they are not. We had discussions. It is quite hard to hear. And all Murray has to say is, because there are no answers, you liar, you. You'd already purged yourself. You should have went and said, no, that's not what he means. But you couldn't even do that, Murray. You couldn't do it. There's just a couple more now. Now, Mr. O'Higgins says, now flowing from that, it does appear Agent Katsky is referring to conversations with the police force and or Garda Síochána. Mary says, well, Agent Katsky would have been aware that Jimmy Flynn would have been a suspect in the case. So Mary is telling us. Mary is actually telling us there that he had a discussion with Matt Katsky about Jimmy Flynn, because Matt Katsky knows Jimmy Flynn at that time was a suspect. Jimmy Flynn has since been acquitted. His car was in the square on Crossmaglen at the time of the Morton robbery. Jimmy Flynn is in Crossmaglen when the person who Pat Murray is now protecting shot and murdered Detective Guard Adrian Donoghue. I can't, let's say, fully appreciate those 4 lines. So he can't appreciate it. You definitely don't appreciate it because Matt Katsky telling the truth put you in the shit, Pat Murray, and showed you for the liar and the perjurer you are. It is there in black and white. People can listen to the tape. It is there for the world to see. And the 4 lines he's talking about is, I don't believe that's going to happen. They would be lying to me if that happens to you. That would be them telling me they are doing something that they are claiming they are not. We had discussions. And the judge allowed this. It's absolutely crazy. I don't believe we had discussions. And Mr. O'Higgins says, in any event, insofar as Agent Katsky was speaking to somebody, it wasn't you or it wasn't any member of the team of which you are aware. And again, this is very, very deceitful what Mary's doing here. So he's asked a direct question and he just can't bring himself to say no this time because Katsky's after telling us, yes, I was speaking to the guards, and this is how this scumbag tries to get out of this. I am saying I would have spoken to Matt Katsky on several occasions, but I did not speak to him prior to his meeting with or having any knowledge of his interaction with Jimmy Flynn at Belfast Airport. You are a liar. And all the statements out of Matt Katsky's own mouth proves that. You purged yourself. It's there for all to see. Everyone can see the best of the Irish judicial system at work here. And the judge allowed that to happen. And people say to us all the time, how did this happen in court? How was this allowed to happen? Why didn't your legal team do something about it? We can see there that Michael O'Higgins questioned Mary. Mary told lies. And he was questioned, and that doesn't even get the essence, I don't think, of the pressure Mary was under in the courtroom. But he was in his own backyard. And as I say, people ask us continually, how did this happen, Tony? How was this allowed to happen? Well, it was allowed to happen because of 2 people. Obviously, Judge Michael White, whom you've seen holding his head in shame when Molly Staunton has been attacked. And again, another man who had to hold his head in shame when he was being attacked, Brendan Grehan. I'm just going to put this up full screen here. So this is Grehan's argument against letting the tape in, because Grehan knows that tape goes in, the case collapses. Because when the tape is analysed and questioned properly in front and dissected in front of a jury, it would have shown the corruption, the collusion and the coercion and the lies by the Detective Mary. So this is Mr. Grehan. This is his argument. I am quite sure that Mr. O'Higgins means when he says that Inspector Mary might be deemed to be credible by the jury. He most certainly wouldn't have been deemed to be credible. If it's in relation to what he has said about the tape, well, in my submission, the jury shouldn't hear anything about what Inspector Mary has said about the tape. So he is standing up for Mary here. He's trying to hide behind the fact that Mary wasn't at the airport. And obviously, but it's quite obvious, as we have shown, Mary was in full contact with Agent Katsky. I didn't interrupt when Mr. O'Higgins was asking the witness questions, but Inspector Mary wasn't there. So that's their excuse, he wasn't there. But if I send someone out to commit a crime, and during the course of that crime, they're insinuating that I was involved and sent them there, well then I'm well entitled to be questioned about that crime. But for some reason, this man, Brendan Grehan, believes that he should be some way exempt. There's no reason on earth why the jury should hear anything about it or have to make any consideration any consideration in terms of whether Inspector Mary is truthful or credible about this. I can tell you, Brendan Grehan, he's not truthful, he's not credible, he's a liar, he purged himself, and you are trying to protect him. It's fucking disgusting at every and all levels. If that is what Mr. O'Higgins is referring to, well then he need have no worry, because the jury simply shouldn't hear anything about it. I don't know why the jury shouldn't hear anything about it if you have the senior investigating officer spouting nothing but lies. If, on the other hand, Mr. O'Higgins is suggesting Inspector Mary in the round in terms of his credibility, well then that's a fairly outrageous to go about suggesting to the jury that in some way they should disbelieve Inspector Mary. Inspector Mary came here to give evidence in relation to the charging. It goes on to another part. So that last bit again, like Brendan Grehan is treading water here. Now, Brendan Grehan saying this to the judge. Now, please concentrate and focus here. If, on the other hand, Mr. O'Higgins is suggesting Inspector Mary in the round in terms of his credibility, what are you talking about, Grehan? Well, then that's a fairly outrageous way to go about suggesting that the jury should disbelieve Inspector Mary. It is quite obvious that Inspector Mary is to be disbelieved. So that's just a little bit about the Matt Katsky tape. You've heard it. We'll release that little clip on its own, and please, people, hear it. And again, very important, you know about Molly Staunton. We know about Daniel Cahill. We know now about Matt Katsky. We know what Brendan Grehan is capable of. Brendan Grehan knew that tape would have collapsed Aaron Brady's trial. And Brendan Grehan alone orchestrated and danced with Pat Mary with the aid of Judge Michael White to prevent the jury and the Irish public hear clearly the illegal activities by the investigating officers and the trial judge to gain a false conviction to frame our son, Aaron. Because Pat Mary, Judge Michael White, and of course, and most certainly, Brendan Grehan knew this. And this picture here paints 1,000 words. And all the words I've said in the 500 videos, this is the picture that shows it all. The man who shot and murdered Detective Garda Adrian Donoghue was 6'3". There's it there. That's the picture. And it is simple as that. Brendan Grehan, Pat Mary, and Judge Michael White are protecting that man that the arrow was on. They are protecting him. Detective Garda Adrian Donoghue was murdered by a man who is 6'3". Aaron Brady is framed, and Aaron Brady is 5'7". That is the Irish judicial system working at its very best